Finally, the hero's sword is ready, and it glows with an intense green light. However, someone remarks that it doesn't look all that different from a regular sword, and the girl immediately gets ticked off by this comment. So, she decides to spill some details about this weapon, which was forged from the legendary metal, orichalcum. Its durability is unbreakable, it's as light as a feather, and every strike delivers 10 times the force and even nullifies healing. And that's not even half of what it can do, but for now, she's gonna skip the rest, because the person who made this incredible weapon is her childhood friend, a guy named Bill Bark, who gets a huge round of applause from the crowd. Our MC gets all flustered, saying he just hopes his skills can help bring about world peace. The hero, however, is completely amazed by the boy and showers him with praise. He says that not even the royal blacksmiths can work with orichalcum, and wonders if he can truly handle something so powerful. Our boy then says that no matter how good the weapon is, if the wielder can't use its power, it's just a piece of scrap metal. With a hand on our MC's shoulder, the hero steps closer to him. He then promises that he will make Bill the greatest blacksmith in the entire continent. Our hero is completely shocked by this unexpected promise, because in that moment, the hero shone with an intense light, like a true chosen one. Bill feels grateful, but also sees himself as just a simple blacksmith from a small town compared to the hero. He sees himself as just a side character, but hey, he's cool with it if his skills can help out in some way. After that, our guy turns around and calls out for a young woman named Sepia. All embarrassed, he shows her a ring he made for her while he was working on the hero's sword. The ring was also made of orichalcum, and he's sure it will look great on her. He tries to say it's nothing special, but he stammers and can't quite manage to confess his feelings to Sepia. Our boy says he'd be happy if she would accept the ring, but Sepia gently stops his hand. She then asks him to give her the ring only after the Demon King has been defeated. Our MC is pretty confused by this unexpected condition. Even so, he agrees with a slightly forced smile. Right after, he clenches his fist tightly because he understood what she really meant. He knows that Sepia is actually in love with the hero, and that this was his one and only chance to confess, because she was going with the hero to a place he could never reach. With a sad and resigned look, our guy can only think of her name, and all he wishes is for Sepia to be very happy by the hero's side. 4 years go by, and a man celebrates the defeat of the Demon King by the hero's party. This man is Bill's uncle, and he's proud that his master has become the youngest in the empire. But the apprentice complains that fame is useless if they can't even pay the taxes. The uncle gets really irritated by this and throws a bottle in the young man's direction, and he yells that it's the empire's fault for only helping the big workshops, leaving them high and dry. Our guy then tries to calm his uncle down, saying that's enough. Bill says that ruling a country isn't easy, and he's proud just to have helped the hero. The apprentice then scoffs, saying the hero is now called the Prime Protector Lord. The drunk uncle apologizes to Bill and says he could be at the imperial court right now, but our MC insists it was his choice and that he'll find a way to get the money. Our MC then tells them to put out the fire because curfew is approaching. Afterward, the workshop goes completely dark, ending their workday. The next day, our guy walks alone through the city streets with his toolkit. He thinks his new house call service was a good idea as he hears a protest in the background. A crowd of merchants is shouting loudly in the streets, demanding their rights be guaranteed. Not understanding a thing, our MC asks a young man what's going on over there. The guy explains that the Empire will now only do business with large guilds, and that's made everyone tense. The crowd continues to protest in front of the guards, and Bill thanks him for the explanation. Our guy thinks they're idiots, cause this isn't going to change the country, and it's not productive at all. He also thinks they should value their lives more, as the rulers can be quite cruel. Finding the whole thing pathetic, our hero decides to leave since it has nothing to do with him. However, as he walks away, he can still hear the crowd's protest shouts. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and he stops, turning to look at the demonstration again. Among the protesters, a man is shouting with all his might for the rights of the merchants. Our MC is shocked to recognize that person as his Uncle Phil. His uncle also sees him in the crowd and is surprised by Bill's presence in the middle of the chaos. At that moment, a guard shouts that by order of the Prime Protector, and due to the citizens' disobedience, martial law will be imposed at that very moment, and he raises his fist in anger. Immediately, all the soldiers raise their spears, ready to attack. And without hesitation, The squad charges forward with their spears pointed right at the crowd. The soldiers then charge full force at the protesters, who scream in pure desperation. They attack mercilessly, and people start falling to the ground, wounded amidst the chaos. Our MC is frozen in shock as he watches the terrible scene unfold right in front of him. Suddenly, a spray of blood flies past our guy's face. The red liquid splatters on his cheek, and he screams in terror at it all. His uncle sees him in danger and yells desperately for Bill to get the heck out of there as fast as possible. But our guy ignores the warning and pulls on his uncle's clothes forcefully. He then says he knows a shortcut for them to escape the chaos safely. They then run through a narrow alley, trying to flee from the guards. The guard yells not to let anyone escape, as everyone runs for their lives. He even orders his men to attack, if necessary, to stop the escape. Just like that, one of the protesters is struck in the back by a sharp spear. Our MC keeps running out of breath, clutching his toolkit. Soon, he hides in a dark alley to try and lose the soldiers chasing them. At that moment, he remembers something he learned from his father at the forge. He concentrates intensely on the alley right in front of him. Suddenly, the world around him transforms into blue lines. Absolutely. Everything turns into a kind of digital blueprint. He realizes that other people can't see things this way, because this unique ability shows the structure of everything and the paths that no one else can see. With a determined look, our MC prepares to use his ability. Using his special vision, he finds a weak point in the structure right above. He then quickly grabs a hammer from inside his toolkit, and with a single, precise strike, he hits the exact spot he had seen. The group runs past, not understanding a thing, and the wood is left with a mark. The guards continue their pursuit, and the leader shouts to catch the traitors. Our guy then looks back with an expression that says he has a plan in mind. Soon after, the soldiers get closer and order the rebels to stop immediately. Our hero then begins a very tense countdown, starting from 3. The guard yells furiously that they will all pay for their crimes. Meanwhile, the hole Bill made in the wood starts to show in effect. The wood begins to crack all over, and the countdown continues at 2. The cracks grow rapidly, spreading across the entire wooden structure. Reaching 1, the whole wall starts to give way and collapse, and at 0, the wooden balcony completely collapses right on top of the guards. The soldiers are caught by surprise and are left confused, not understanding what happened. Taking advantage of the distraction, the group manages to escape the pursuit safely. At night, they finally make it back to the workshop, safe and sound. But our MC is in shock, wondering what on earth just happened. He curls up in a corner, and his uncle approaches to apologize to Bill. The uncle tells him not to worry since the forge is pretty remote, and asks him to explain everything. Our guy, still in shock, asks what he wants him to explain about the protest. The uncle confesses that he doesn't know the details either, but the Empire's response was way over the top. He asks if Bill also felt how the state is slowly crushing the weaker ones. Then our MC, with his hands on the ground, begs his uncle to never get involved in activism again. But his uncle questions what will happen to the country if they all stop fighting. Bill yells that the Prime Protector is the one who should worry about the country, not his uncle. He says he's terrified because his parents never came back from the war, and he's lost touch with Scipia, and because he knows that suffering, he works hard so they don't lose the forge. Crying, he asks if the country is more important than family, and what will he do if he loses his uncle too. Moved by his words, the uncle strokes the boy's head and apologizes. He then hugs him and promises that from now on, he won't let him worry about anything else. Then, to the other protesters, he announces that as of that day, he is leaving the movement. The other men agree, since nobody there signed up to put their lives on the line like that. The scene then changes to a blue sky with a few birds flying peacefully. The next day, everyone is sleeping on makeshift mattresses in the workshop. Our MC then starts to wake up slowly, still a bit drowsy. He opens his eyes and seems a little confused by the situation around him. Next to him, his uncle is asleep, and in his sleep, he apologizes to Bill. Our guy is relieved to have convinced his uncle and promises that he will protect him. With a smile on his face, our MC lies back down and thinks that things can finally go back to normal. But this peace is short-lived, as the workshop door is kicked down with a powerful blow. Next, a squad of knights invades the place, and the leader orders them to arrest everyone. Everyone in the forge is arrested for treason, and our guy is in shock with a spear at his neck. Outside, they are tied up, and Bill doesn't understand what's happening. Our hero feels that something is wrong, because if they knew about them, they would have attacked at night. Besides, the location is remote, so it would be impossible to find them by chance. So how did they know? Suddenly, the apprentice Tom seems desperate about the whole situation. He shouts that his master, Bill, never participated in any protest and did nothing wrong. While being held back by the guards, he continues to defend our MC, who is left confused. With a look of horror, Bill stares at Tom and begins to understand the truth behind it all. The apprentice shrinks in fear and stammers as he calls out to his master. Our guy looks at his tied hands and asks why Tom did it. Then he explodes in a fit of rage and despair, screaming and asking why he was betrayed. Tom explains that the guards said they wouldn't take his master, and they also said that Uncle Phil was useless to them anyway. Crying, he says the forge was going to be seized and his uncle just drank all the time, so he had to act. The young man explains there was a reward for reporting those involved in the movement, and, with that money, they could prevent the seizure of the forge and start over without his uncle. Finally, Tom apologizes to his master, who now understands the whole bitter truth. After the betrayal, a trumpet sounds, signaling a complete change of scenery. Because now our MC is in a huge throne room, standing before the former hero. The Prime Protector calls him an old comrade, but our guy is trembling with nervousness. Then the hero, now known as Oliver Prime, tells him not to tremble because they're friends. Even with Oliver telling him to make himself at home, our hero is still very uncomfortable. The conversation's tone shifts, and Oliver asks directly if Bill joined the citizens' movement. Our MC panics and denies everything on the spot, saying he's a huge admirer of the hero. Oliver laughs and finds the title of Hero, nostalgic, commenting that only Bill calls him that now. He then reveals he was just kidding, and already knew of his innocence because of a testimony. Our guy is relieved, and realizes the person who defended him was the other apprentice from the workshop. On top of that, Oliver reveals that he paid off all the forge's debts, leaving Bill completely shocked. He says it's the least he could do for the man who saved humanity. As the court watches on, in the crowd, a man asks the captain who that young man is to be treated with so much respect. The captain then explains about the 3 great masters of the world, starting with Cyclops from the demon realm. The second master is Vulcanus the Duplicator from the kingdom of Aveline, who is also very famous. And finally, the third is the golden hand of the Valteran Empire, known as Midas. The greatest of them all is Midas, who forged the hero's sword, and that legendary blacksmith is none other than Bill Bark himself. The other man doubts it, saying there are over 20 masters in their kingdom alone, but the captain insists that Bill is the best of them all. He's just very modest and doesn't like fame. Hearing all this, our MC finally musters the courage and decides to ask the hero a question. Oliver smiles and, with great confidence, tells the boy to ask whatever he wants. Our MC then stammers a bit but asks about Sepia, since he's lost touch with her. Upon hearing the girl's name, the hero's hand tightens its grip on the arm of the throne. Even so, he replies that Sepia is on a mission, and he will send her to the forge as soon as she returns. Our guy is overjoyed with this news, and thanks Oliver profusely for his help. But before leaving, he clasps his hands together and says he has one last thing to ask. A little embarrassed, he asks if his uncle could come home with him. The hero's expression then turns serious, and he asks what would happen if it were already too late for his uncle. Our MC is completely terrified by this statement and asks what he means by that. However, Oliver starts laughing loudly and says the whole thing was just a joke. Bill is confused by the joke and by the reaction of the entire court, who were also laughing at the situation. The hero apologizes and says he was just trying to soften some rather unpleasant news. He explains that Uncle Phil's innocence has not yet been proven, and favors aren't easy to grant, so he says he'll see what he can do and asks Bill to go home for now. Our guy thanks him very much and calls the hero a true shining light. Oliver, for his part, just stares at him with a very serious and cold expression on his face. After that, the wait wasn't difficult, as our MC went back to working at the forge. He also found out that Tom ran away, leaving only an apology letter with a little money. But it was okay because he kept himself very busy to make his uncle and Sepia happy. So he prepared Sepia's equipment and his uncle's wine to make the time pass more quickly. With a chilling smile, our guy wonders how many days have already passed. Suddenly, someone knocks on the workshop door, calling for Mr. Bill Bark. The unexpected visit is from the Imperial family, and our MC is very surprised by this. But he doesn't waste any time and runs to answer the door, all excited about the visit. Our guy was anxiously waiting for this moment and runs with a smile on his face. because he's finally going to see his beloved Sepia and his dear Uncle Phil again. He thinks about everything he prepared, like the homemade food, Sepia's gear, and his uncle's wine. Then he reaches the door, ready to welcome them. However, the scene he finds is completely different and much darker. Sepia is lying on top of a coffin, looking very weak and frail. The coffin, with a cross on top, suggests that Uncle Phil is no longer with them. And in that moment, our MC's world completely falls apart. He calls out for Sepia and asks what happened to her lead. The girl seems to be delirious and tries to reach for a butterfly flying nearby. Shortly after, she faints and falls off the coffin, completely drained of strength. Our hero is paralyzed, unable to comprehend the tragic scene in front of him. He wonders if all of this is just a terrible nightmare. Slowly, he approaches the coffin, still in a state of shock. With tears in his eyes, he calls out for his uncle and asks what he's doing there. And looking at the body, he asks if his uncle knows how expensive that wine he bought was. In complete shock, our MC starts to tremble and lets out a very sinister laugh. Suddenly, all his pain and sorrow explode into a scream of pure desperation. He grabs his own head and screams, asking why this was happening. In an act of desperation, he begs for his uncle to wake up and come back to him. This pain tore his soul apart and made him feel completely broken inside. In that moment, he remembers the lies Oliver told about Sepia's mission. The memory of the betrayal fuels his fury and makes him grind his teeth in hatred. He also recalls Oliver's false promise about helping his uncle get out of prison, and so all his rage finally finds a target. On his knees on the ground, our guy lets out a scream that echoes throughout the forest. His pain and his hatred transform into a cry for vengeance, his eyes glowing. Then he remembers when he was leaving the castle, and the hero gave him something. Oliver handed him a golden emblem as proof that he was his guest. It was a free pass to visit the castle whenever he needed anything. The hero even said that since it was pure gold, he could sell it at the market if he wanted. Our guy then fills with gratitude and promises that one day he will return the favor. Sometime later, on a rainy night, our MC arrives at the Prime Protector's castle. The guard confirms that the emblem is real and asks what brings him there today. With a cold smile, our guy says he's here to do maintenance on the Prime Protector's sword. The guard then asks him to wait while he informs his superiors of the visit. While he waits, our guy clutches his toolkit tightly and remembers his plan. He thinks about how he could defeat the hero in a direct fight, but he knows it's impossible because in his mind, he lunges with the sword, but the attack is completely useless. His chances of winning a fair fight against the strongest man in the world were basically zero, as he would be defeated in the blink of an eye. Oliver was so fast that our hero wouldn't even realize he'd been hit. That's why he focused on what he does best, because he is a blacksmith, not a warrior. Besides, the hero uses the very sword that Bill forged, making everything even harder. But after a lot of thought, he found a very simple answer to his problem. It was a plan that only a blacksmith could pull off, and it was his only chance. The solution to everything was his own craft of repairing weapons. Because there's nothing more natural than a blacksmith making repairs on a sword. This way, the hero would lower his guard without any suspicion and let him get close. And just like that, the most powerful weapon in the world would end up in our guy's hands. It was the perfect plan because he would have the best weapon against an unsuspecting opponent. Now, he just has to decide whether to use his hammer or the hero's own sword. Back in reality, he demands an answer, and Oliver says he never wanted to be a hero. Our MC is shocked and asks if he's going to complain about his life now. The Prime Protectors says he became disillusioned because there's a limit to what one person can save, but Bill slams his hand on the table and tells him to cut it out since he's the one who brought peace to the world. The hero agrees that he saved the world, but he throws a puzzling question into the air. He asks what would have happened if the Demon King's army had never invaded, and he even questions if the world really needed him to save it in the first place. Our guy is confused by these words, and Oliver says the answer is simple. He says the country needed to be so powerful that no one would dare challenge them, because if they had all that power, the war would have never even started. After the war, he reflected a lot to prevent a tragedy like that from happening again. And then he asks Bill what answer he came up with. The Prime Protector reveals that the solution was for him to rule the country himself. To do that, he eliminated the corrupt nobility and royalty and promoted new talent. He prides himself on having led the nation into an unprecedented golden age. And with a sinister smile, He asks if our guy now understands why he's there, but Bill doesn't care about any of that and lunges forward with a hate-filled attack. He yells that if the chat is over, then the hero can just drop dead right there. The Prime Protector, however, seems very calm about our MC's attack. With a simple gesture, he says, "What a shame," and points a finger at the boy. In the next moment, a magic arrow is fired and hits our hero right in the shoulder. Our MC feels a terrible pain from the impact of the surprise attack. He screams in pain and drops the sword, which clatters loudly on the floor. Soon after, a squad of guards rushes into the room and surrounds our wounded guy. The guards ask if the Prime Protector is all right, but he says it was nothing serious. Then Bill is arrested for attempted assassination, and he screams Oliver's name in anger. Our guy then asks since when he knew he was going to be attacked. Oliver replies that that's the wrong question for the situation, because someone who defeated the Demon King single-handedly would feel his intent from a mile away. Our MC is confused and asks why he didn't do anything. The Prime Protector's answer is that he did it because our guy is capable. He reveals that he always wanted him as one of his allies, and that the offer still stands. Then the hero extends his hand and asks if Bill won't accept it. Our guy is surrounded by guards as he stares at Oliver's proposal. He thinks it's absurd since he just tried to end the guy, but he accepts on one condition. The hero finds it amusing that he's making a counter proposal and agrees to answer. With a serious look, our MC prepares to ask his question. He then asks directly why Sepia ended up like that. Oliver explains that she was very capable and that she faced 200,000 soldiers, and in the last desperate battle, she ended up losing one of her legs. Even with such a grave injury, she didn't despair and kept fighting. Together, they defeated the Demon King, and peace finally returned to the world. But that peace was very short-lived, and soon humanity was at war again. The kingdom's power was too weak, and they had no choice but to send the heroes. He continues, saying that all the heroes went to the front lines, except for Sepia. Then, he talks about the loneliness of being left behind while all her friends were fighting. And because of that feeling, the young woman eventually gave in to despair. She then resorted to something no one should ever touch and used dark magic. That's how Sepia managed to return to the battlefield with a dark power. Oliver adds that our guy has already seen the side effects of that with his own eyes. After telling the whole story, the hero asks what Bill's answer will be. Our MC remains silent but asks Oliver to answer something for him first. He then asks why the hero didn't stay by Sepia's side to help her. Bill directly accuses him of letting their friend get into that terrible state. With tears in his eyes, he yells, asking why Oliver let her suffer alone if she was injured for him. Our guy says he had more than enough power and influence to have done something for her. In his mind, he fondly remembers the times when they were a close-knit group. As the guards hold him back, he insists that Sepia really needed the hero. Our MC then hangs his head low, waiting for the answer to his question. But Oliver questions if that made Sepia his responsibility, and who Bill was to say that. The hero then throws the blame back on our guy, asking why he didn't go help her himself. He points to the sword on the floor and says Bill just stayed in the workshop, forging a weapon. With great anger, Oliver yells that he has no right to talk about responsibility. Finally, he ends the argument by calling our MC a huge coward. The Prime Protector then humiliates him, saying he's just an insignificant man who runs from responsibility. Turning his back on our guy, Oliver even laughs and repeats that he's nothing more than a coward. But our MC is enraged by this accusation and glares at him with hatred in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, the hero attacks with a beam of light that goes straight for Bill. The attack hits our guy's arm head-on, which simply vanishes in a puff of smoke. With the sword in his hand, Oliver says he won't take responsibility for something that is now useless. He then says that in recognition of his past service, he will at least spare his life, and with cruel contempt, he tells our hero to live out the rest of his days with just one hand. Our MC screams in pain and agony from his severed arm, bleeding on the floor. And as our guy suffers, Oliver simply walks away without even a glance back. After some time, we see our hero's old workshop on a very sunny day. Suddenly, a woman knocks on the door and asks if anyone is home at the moment. Getting no response, she wonders if the place is empty and if no one is there. However, our guy peeks through a crack in the door with a very suspicious look at the visitor. The woman then sees him and introduces herself as Sarah, the former thief queen of the hero's party. After he tells her the whole story, the two of them sit on the grass to talk. Sarah then jokes that thanks to Oliver, the country has actually developed quite a bit, but she quickly stops joking and says that with his arm like that, he can't be a blacksmith anymore. Our MC insists that he can still work, even with his arm all bandaged up. So she asks for a new dagger or some repairs, but he refuses both requests on the spot. Sarah then dangles some bait, saying she was going to tell him Sepia's story. Our guy changes his mind instantly and accepts the job, just this once. With a victorious smile, Sarah asks how much the dagger she requested will cost. The boy replies that the payment will be Sepia's story plus the cost of materials. And just like that, the two of them strike a deal, trading favors. Back in the workshop, our hero gets to work and thinks about how Oliver twisted the facts. He's furious because he always knew the hero was hiding something from him. Sarah then begins to tell the truth about Sepia's leg and the Demon King. She reveals that Sepia was the second fastest in the group after herself, and that the Demon King's strong point wasn't speed, but his destructive power. Suddenly, the ring our guy gave to Sepia appears in the story. Sarah explains that Sepia didn't fail to dodge the attack, she chose not to dodge it. The young woman sacrificed herself and lost her leg to protect the hero from a fatal blow. She says the reason she went back to fighting was because of a request from Oliver. The hero knelt down and begged for her help from her wheelchair. He said he needed to win the war to become the prime protector, and that he could turn the tables with her. Sepia refused the request because she didn't think she could fight in that state. She then asked what she could possibly do to help without one of her legs. The hero then offered her a dark solution to her problem. He reminded her of the grimoire they found, and that with it, she could become stronger. Sepia is frightened by the proposal and says the grimoire contains dark magic. She states that it's a type of power that should never be used by anyone. The hero then gets angry and completely ignores the woman's warning. He gets worked up and questions her about the importance of being friends and comrades. Oliver yells that he considered her more than just a battle companion. With a very dramatic performance, he pretends to be hurt by her refusal. Sepia is moved by his words and apologizes to Oliver for her reaction. The hero then realizes he went too far and tries to apologize for what he said. He then leaves and asks her to pretend that day never happened. But just as he's about to leave, Sepia calls him back with a determined voice. With a resolved look, she changes her mind and says she will help him in the war. Upon hearing this, Oliver cracks a very sinister smile of pure satisfaction. Hidden in the bushes, Sarah observes the entire conversation between the two companions. Back at the forge, the story continues with the ring Bill gave to Sepia. Sarah reveals that the ring fell on the ground when Sepia was taken away, and that one of the guards stepped on the ring without even realizing what he had done. Our guy is shocked and saddened to learn the fate of the gift he gave her. He then approaches Sepia and urgently asks to see her hand. The woman is confused by the request, but our MC insists on the matter. Apparently, he has a plan in mind to help his friend and get revenge on Oliver. He then returns the ring to Sepia, saying that this way she won't lose anymore. Very carefully, our guy places the ring back on the woman's finger, but suddenly, the ring slips and falls to the ground right in front of him. Our MC doesn't understand and finds it strange that the ring fell off like that. He wonders why the ring didn't fit if he made it perfectly for her. Trying one more time, he attempts to put the ring on his friend's finger again. But once again, the ring slips and falls to the ground, leaving our guy very confused. Suddenly, his arm starts to hurt, and he wonders what's happening. The pain intensifies, and he realizes it's not his arm, but his hand that's hurting. Tears start to stream from his eyes as he feels an unbearable pain. He clenches his hand tightly and screams in pain from the agony he's feeling. And, with tears streaming down, he remembers the loss and betrayal he suffered. In a fit of rage and despair, he punches the ground with all his might. Lying on the floor, he thinks of his uncle and Sepia and wonders where it all went wrong. He questions if the mistake was accepting an apprentice who betrayed him, or maybe it was when he let Sepia go without trying to stop her, or perhaps the real mistake was putting the sword in the hero's hand. In the end, he realizes that everything he's done so far has only led him to ruin. He feels completely powerless with everything that has happened up to that point. But suddenly, a hand touches his head to try and calm him down. The young woman with a gentle smile tries to say something, but can only babble. Our guy looks up and sees it was Sepia, trying to comfort him in her delirium. With tears in his eyes, our MC is shocked by her action. He then wonders if she's trying to console him, even in that state, and he feels guilty because he was never able to do anything to help her. Filled with determination, he gets up and grabs his hammer with great force. Raising his tool, Our hero promises Sepia that he will change everything. With a powerful strike, he says that no matter what happens, his expression shows all his rage and his newfound resolution, and amidst the sparks, he affirms that he will definitely succeed. With a final gleam, he guarantees that he will fulfill his promise of revenge. 2 weeks pass, and Sara asks if she can pick up her dagger. Before leaving, she admits that she's also to blame because she didn't stop Oliver. Our guy then listens to her confession with a thoughtful look. Turning to leave, she tells him to call her if he needs help, and running through the field, she promises she will help him at least one time. After that, an intense light shines, showing the result of his work, because our hero now has a new arm, and he swears his revenge will be complete. The scene then shifts to a group of mercenaries training very hard, and one of them shouts for someone named Hans to explain what the day's mission will be. Hans then explains that they've received reports of explosions, and their mission is to investigate the source. He thinks it could be illegal weapons research or some other crime, and the leader agrees with his analysis. However, the boss warns them to focus on the investigation and not on fighting, as they are just students. The whole group agrees with the order and runs at high speed to the mission location. Arriving there, they spread out through the destroyed forest to look for any kind of clue. A young woman then notices there's no smell of gunpowder and suggests it might be a mage. Another young man sees the sawdust and says the explosion was recent and the culprit couldn't have gone far. The girl then asks if the person didn't use a teleport or a mount to escape, but Hans explains that the place is too close to the village for that, and they would have gone further. The leader then praises the trio, Hans, Lin, and Phylon, for their excellent analysis of the situation. He concludes that the suspect has no transport, but suddenly he feels something strange in the air. What the group doesn't even imagine is that they are being watched from the bushes by someone. The mysterious person is actually our MC, who is training with his sword. He seems to be testing a new ability and wonders if what he's doing is the right thing. Our guy then continues to practice his sword movements in complete tranquility. But the mercenaries are disappointed and complain that he's just a novice swordsman, hidden in the trees. They seem very let down as they were expecting to find a mage. Hans even says that his fighting skill is, at best, the level of some random thug. The girl then agrees and says that the 3 of them don't even need to go down to handle the situation. Phylon also thinks it's not a big deal, and they seem very confident that they can handle him. So Hans asks the boss if the mission has changed, and now they're going to arrest the criminal. But the boss says they can't just go around calling the guy a criminal out of the blue. Right after, he pulls out a wanted poster with Bill's face and name on it. The poster says he's a blacksmith and has many special notes about him. The charge is attempting to end the Prime Protector, and the leader is shocked. With this revelation, he shouts loudly, getting the attention of Group A. He then confirms that the man is the criminal Bill Bark, and that capture is preferable. Phylon then understands that if capture is preferable, it means he could not survive, and Hans adds that he must be strong enough to have tried to take on the Prime Protector. Lin, for her part, is already preparing for combat with her weapon in hand, and without wasting any time, they decide to attack all 3 at once, right from the start. The trio then charges full force at our MC, who is completely distracted. Our guy doesn't even stand a chance, and is easily defeated by the group's surprise attack. But Hans is very confused and wonders why Bill is so weak. Lin thinks he's just an informant, and Phylon agrees since he couldn't even react. Hans then becomes thoughtful and seems to be coming up with some kind of plan in his mind. Suddenly, he approaches and kicks the sword back to our MC. He then tells Bill to pick up the weapon, because it would be boring to end things that way. With a smile, he introduces himself as Hans, and says this is a little kindness from the next hero. Our guy, on the other hand, is very tense about the situation and the young man's words. Our guy then picks up the sword and says they've got it all wrong. He prepares to fight, realizing that talking won't do any good, but Hans, with a mocking smile, tells him to take a good look. He then shows how to measure the distance between opponents in a fight. The young man moves with incredible speed around Bill. Hans creates afterimages of himself, leaving our hero very confused by what he sees. Suddenly, he lunges forward with a super, fast, and precise attack. The blade grazes past, and our guy can't even see the movement. Hans then says his strike is unbreakable and prepares to attack again. He then delivers another blow that Bill tries unsuccessfully to defend against. With a quick kick, the young man easily unbalances our MC, and right after, he finishes with a powerful and precise attack on the boy. our hero falls to the ground in a lot of pain, not understanding what happened. He is then thrown to the ground with a final, very humiliating blow. Hans complains that the fight was very boring and that he's disappointed. He even asks how Bill is going to make up for all the time he wasted. But the group's boss finds the whole situation very strange and suspicious because their mission was to investigate explosions near the village, not to fight. And from the broken trees and rocks, they were definitely very strong explosions, so they suspected a mage or a bomber. But they only found Bill. On the ground, our MC defends himself and begs them to stop. But Hans doesn't understand and asks what he wants them to stop. Then Hans realizes that if there's no one else, Bill's weapon must be something else. With his hand outstretched, our guy says to just get it over with. And the young man understands that the weapon is not a sword, but a cannon. Suddenly, a blast of red energy shoots out from our guy's hand. The attack came from his prosthetic hand, which is now glowing intensely. Hans screams in agony from the pain of the attack that hit him head on. He becomes furious and calls him a coward for hiding his true weapon. Our guy then asks what kind of swordsman drops his sword, and he even asks if he considers himself a swordsman after that. Hans goes completely nuts with the provocation and the blood on his face. He swears he's going to shut our MC's mouth and finish him. He then charges forward, screaming for Bill to just die already. But our guy manages to block the blow with his new metal arm. Suddenly, the group's boss appears and says that's enough fighting. Hans is surprised by the interruption, but his leader is very serious. He then realizes that our MC's strategy was very good. He had enough power for the target and lured him in close to improve his aim. But at the critical moment, he decided not to finish his opponent. The boss realizes that our guy hesitated because he closed his eyes at the last second. This just proves that he's never ended someone's life before, and he had a chance. The leader then explains that no matter how much they try to defeat you, taking a life is not easy. Phylon tells Hans to shut up, and he says his friend almost got taken out for letting his guard down. But the boss tells him to calm down and take a good look at the situation. He then asks if Bill really seems like a good training partner for them. Hans gets annoyed and asks if they're just going to drag the guy away like that. The leader says no, but they're not leaving without some training either. He then explains that Bill showed no hostility from the beginning, and that's why he didn't fight seriously. The boss then orders the group to get their talismans for the training. Our guy is very confused by the mention of talismans and what they mean. The leader then turns and asks if Bill is familiar with the Hero Academy's curriculum. He reveals that one of the programs is to train students to eliminate evil without hesitation and to get used to the blood and screams. They do it with a live criminal. Suddenly, Phylon remembers that the name Bill Bark seems very familiar from somewhere. He then recalls that the name of their group's assignment was Phil Bark. Our MC freaks out with rage and despair upon hearing his uncle's name. The boss then confirms that the name is correct and they have a family connection. He then realizes that Bill's resolve isn't there yet and he's still suffering. Our guy then gets up, still in a lot of pain and with his hand on his chest. Finally, our guy understands everything and clutches his head tightly. He realizes that taking down Oliver means erasing everything he created, and that includes the Hero Academy and all its students. With a sinister smile and tears in his eyes, he swears to erase every last piece. He then asks them to wait and gets the attention of the whole group. He says they need a real training target and offers himself. Our guy says his profession is a blacksmith and that they're not going to train like this. The leader is confused and asks what he's trying to say, and with a determined look, our MC says just one word, time. He then asks for time to arm himself and promises to do his best to fight. Hans scoffs and says he's just trying to buy time to escape. Suddenly, our MC looks at him and asks if he's being serious. Hans then notices a glowing object in his pocket and gets confused. He then remembers what happened and is shocked by the revelation, because with a very chilling smile, he realizes that Bill wasn't running away. Our hero then clasps his hands, and the leader agrees to his proposal. He then asks how much time our MC will need to prepare. The boy replies that 1 hour is enough, and the boss tells him to go. But before he does, he warns that if Bill is late, he already knows what will happen. He then takes the uncle's talisman and threatens to feed it to the pigs. Hans tosses the talisman's finger and tells the boss that he was right. He then complains that Bill ran away, and they lost their chance to train. Lin asks how the boss is going to make up for the extra credit they lost. Bored with the wait, the girl stretches and yawns loudly. Suddenly, something falls from the sky and catches the whole group's attention. The girl catches the object in mid-air and is very surprised by what she sees. An explosion occurs, and the talisman she was holding shatters into pieces. The force of the attack completely injures her hand. She screams in pain, and suddenly several armored knights appear. One of them shoots from his arm, showing off his ranged attack ability. He then announces that he only has 35 fingers left to hit. Lin screams furiously and tells her friends to take the jerk down. She even demands that they make the attack as painful as possible. The two young men charge forward to attack the mysterious knight, but their attacks seem to have no effect on the armor. The knight then unsheathes his sword and prepares for combat. The boss then asks what they should do against an enemy with a hard shell, and right after, he answers his own question. The target should be the joints. So the two young men try to attack the joints of the knight's armor, because the joints that connect the armor are made of fabric or thin chainmail. Even so, their attacks are completely useless against the armor. Hans is shocked, because not even the joints are giving way to their blows. Lin then yells that's enough playing around and tells them to finish him. She charges forward with a powerful attack and screams for the knight to die. The girl shoots a sphere of energy that goes straight for his head. The knight then says she has a soft heart for not aiming for the head, because even in a situation like this, she chose to attack his hand. The boss then realizes he's a fool for still holding back his blow. Lin is furious with the accusation and curses the knight with great anger. She then attacks with everything she's got, and the boss realizes his students aren't holding back. The knight is knocked to the ground and lies completely motionless after the attack. Without wasting time, Lin stomps on him with all her strength and anger, and the trio gangs up to stomp on the fallen knight without any mercy. They continue to attack with punches and kicks with all the strength they have, but after a while, they wonder if their blows are having any effect. Phylon then suggests they break the joints to finish him. The knight on the ground then scoffs, saying they're future heroes but they fight dirty. Hans replies that that only matters if the fight is fair from the start. The girl then remembers they promised to finish him in the most painful way possible, and Phylon says that's just part of the training and tells him not to take it personally. The knight then tells them not to take it personally either. Suddenly, he grabs Lin and forcefully pins her to the ground. With a single blow, he easily breaks the girl's arm. Then his armor begins to glow with a very intense blue light. Spikes then shoot out from all over the armor and hit Lin head on. The girl screams in pain as the knight gets up, covered in spikes. He says the locks on the joints were expected, and he was prepared. The knight then turns to the boss and asks when he's going to join the fight, but the boss just smiles and says the fight belongs to his students now. Phylon and Hans charge in to attack, but the knight is much faster. He unsheathes his sword and prepares for a counter-attack against the boys. With a swift movement, he dodges their attacks and knocks them to the ground. The knight tries to attack, but they are very agile and dodge his blows. He then complains that his sword can't reach the students. Amidst the dust, he wonders how he'll ever reach Oliver if he can't even hit them. And the image of Oliver appears in his mind, fueling his anger and frustration. But our MC calms himself and says not to rush the fight. He then compares the fight to the act of forging steel in his workshop, because you don't get what you want with a single, precise hammer strike. And with that, he lands another hammer blow. He then continues to strike repeatedly with his imaginary hammer, and after many blows, he finally manages to hit one of them. The tip of the sword gleams with a bit of blood, showing the hit landed. With the sword in his hand, he celebrates the blow he finally managed to land, and with a cry of victory, he celebrates the attack that hit his opponent. Hans, however, scoffs and says it was just a lucky scratch. Phylon then asks his friends what the best way to end the fight is. The knight then says he has an idea and shows his metal hand. Suddenly, several glowing objects shoot out from his hand and fly through the air. The objects transform into a net that traps the entire group at once. Lin gets annoyed and says, the net won't break no matter how much they struggle. The knight then mocks them, saying that not even the strength of an ogre could break the net. Hans becomes desperate and says that if they don't return, the academy will send reinforcements. He then boasts that time is on their side in this situation. But the knight asks if he really thinks he didn't consider that. He then wonders if the young man knows why he set the trap now. The reason was the same as theirs. He also needed combat practice. Hans panics and begs the knight not to do anything to him. The knight then approaches and tells the young man to get his hand off him. Hans pleads for his life and asks his boss, who is watching, for help. But the boss just ignores him and says he passed the combat test. In the blink of an eye, he rushes forward and ends his own student's life. The knight is covered in blood and shocked by the unexpected scene. With the entire group defeated, the boss congratulates Bill for passing. He then approaches with a sinister smile and a very intimidating aura. Next, he also ends the lives of the other 2 students without hesitation. Lynn screams in desperation at the scene of her friends being taken down. Phylon calls him a madman and doesn't understand why he did that to them. And with a single, precise blow, the boss ends his last student's life. Phylon is in shock and can't believe what just happened. With a weapon in hand, the boss wishes them to rest in peace. And he even says he hopes they are reborn in a world with better adults. Our MC is on high alert and prepares for what might come next. The leader then approaches and tells Bill not to be so defensive. He then repeats that our guy passed the test and can relax. Our hero is confused and can't make sense of what happened. He wonders why the boss ended the lives of his own students, and how he's gonna fight a monster like that man. The boss then tosses his weapon aside and seems very calm. He then says there was a misunderstanding and that those kids deserved what they got. But he says it's better to send them off without pain and with a quick end. With a determined look, he prepares to attack our MC. Suddenly, a red chain shoots out from his hand and heads toward him. He says he already figured this would be our hero's attack pattern. He then charges forward and tells Bill to listen to what he has to say. The boss reveals that he came there specifically to meet him. With a powerful attack, he asks if Bill hates the Prime Protector, and before attacking, he says that they feel the same way our guy does. The boss then suggests they talk to resolve the situation. He seems to be trying to form an alliance with our MC, but our hero doesn't seem to be listening and remains in an attack stance. He then realizes he can't do anything and prepares for the worst. He then says that Bill brought this on himself and attacks him. The blow is so strong that our MC's helmet shatters. Our guy then screams in shock and pain from the unexpected attack. Suddenly, he wakes up in a room and seems very startled by the situation. He wonders if he's alive and touches his own face to make sure. Not understanding anything, he asks where he is and what happened to his armor. He remembers that he needs to check the North Passage the next day, and with a pen in hand, he seems to be writing something important. He then opens the door and notices that the wind has changed direction. With a small knife in hand, he realizes this could be very dangerous. So he peeks through the door and sees several people gathered in a hall. They seem to be arguing about a missing storage key. A young man praises Varhan for his incredible strength, control, and skill. In another corner, a drunk man asks Draco to bring more drinks, and a red-haired boy offers a piece of candy to a young woman next to him. The woman takes the candy with a smile and seems very happy with the gift. Our MC then recognizes the woman and realizes it's Sepia. Suddenly, someone surprises him from behind and asks if he's awake. The man then attacks him with a quick blow and knocks him to the ground. Everyone gets scared and shouts for the boss, who was attacked by surprise. But he says everything is fine and tells everyone to sit back down. With his hand injured, he says that Bill didn't block him but went straight through him. The red-haired boy gets furious and asks if Bill knows who the boss is. The man then approaches and says Bill must be confused and scared. He then asks if our guy forgives them for bringing Sepia there. He introduces himself as Wat Tyler, the leader of an anti-Empire organization, and, without beating around the bush, he gets straight to the point and makes a proposal to Bill. He then invites our MC to join them and overthrow the Prime Protector. Our MC then refuses the offer on the spot and says he won't join. He reveals that his only goal is to end the Prime Protector with his own hands. Wat Tyler then understands the situation and seems to be thinking of a new plan. He admits that defeating someone with absolute power won't be easy, so he proposes that they work together until they take down the hero. He extends his hand and calls it a collaboration between them. All the group members seem to agree with the boss's new proposal, and to seal the deal, he offers a handshake to our MC. His bandaged hand symbolizes the alliance he is proposing to Bill, but our guy refuses and asks if he wants a collaboration with the one who tortured him. With a look of pure hatred, he tells them all to get lost before he takes them all down. Varan tries to explain that the fingers were fake and that it was a misunderstanding. Wat Tyler then approaches and asks if he thinks he can defeat the Prime Protector alone. He even questions if Bill has the confidence to face the hero head-on, and the image of Oliver appears in his mind, showing just how powerful he is. Our guy then says he has to do this with his own hands. Suddenly, his hand starts to bleed, and he remembers his weakness. He then screams in pain and despair at the situation he's in. Lying on the floor, he wonders what he should do to get his revenge. Wat Tyler watches him and mentions his arm, Sepia, and his uncle to convince him. A young man then says that's enough, and that the boss has made his point. He approaches and says it's a pleasure to meet Bill in person. Our guy is surprised because the young man's fingers are intact. He then introduces himself as Edric and suggests that Bill hear the rest of the proposal. The scene then shifts to a group of prisoners in a combat arena. They are ordered to pick up their weapons to fight for their freedom. A man announces that whoever defeats the Count in combat will be set free. But one of the prisoners complains that they are common people and don't know how to fight. Another man whispers in the Count's ear, and he seems to agree with something. Suddenly, he orders the hostages to be brought out, and several chained people appear. The prisoners recognize their family members and become desperate at the situation. The Count then explains that he respects his comrades because they are strong, and that before they took up arms, they were no different from the prisoners. He points to several men of different professions who have joined him, and says that if they can't fight, he will give them the will to fight himself. He then grabs one of the female hostages and threatens her with a knife to her neck. The woman's husband becomes desperate and charges with a sword to save her, but the Count is faster and uses her as a human shield against the attack. The man is shocked to see that he has accidentally struck his own wife, and the Count finishes the woman right in front of her husband with a bloody knife in his hand. He asks why they are just standing there. He then threatens to help them again, and the prisoners are terrified. Filled with hatred, they charge at the Count, screaming in pure rage. With a satisfied smile, he watches the men running to attack. He then tosses his weapon into the air and prepares for the coming fight. In a bloodbath, he defeats all the prisoners without any mercy, and in the end, he declares that weakness is a sin that cannot be forgiven. Edric continues his explanation, talking about Zahir, the weapons master from the hero's old party. He's currently a Count who commands the Protector's army and oversees territorial defense. And since he's so powerful, as long as he's on his feet, the hero doesn't need to get personally involved. Then, someone at the table questions if Zahir doesn't just go it alone. This gets our boy wondering if the revolutionary forces can actually defeat his army. However, the red-haired guy starts laughing at our hero's question, calling him a fool for even considering ahead on fight against the regular army. Right after, he asks if Bill knows where they are, and our boy replies that they're in a meeting room. Our protagonist then looks up and starts to take a closer look at the place. He smells the scent of damp earth and mold and hears the sound of pumps and ventilation systems. Because of this, our boy figures out they're in a basement. The redhead dramatically complains, saying the word basement is way too creepy, and asks Bill to listen closely, cause it's not just any basement. The guy then points to where they are now and reveals that they're in an underground tunnel, but then quickly corrects himself. In reality, this whole place is a massive underground city. Our hero is completely stunned by this huge revelation. Wat Tyler then confirms that the city connects to every corner of the kingdom, and with a plan in mind, he says they'll use the tunnels to capture Zahir. That way, they'll take out his subordinates one by one to isolate him. And Wat Tyler finishes by saying their strategy will be to use guerrilla tactics. After that, the scene shifts to a training ground with lots of people working out. There's our boy, practicing with a wooden sword on a dummy. With all his might, he lands a pretty powerful blow on the target, but the effort leaves him exhausted and sweating buckets. Even so, our protagonist gears up for another attack, and once again, he hits the dummy with a strong strike. The impact is so great that he can't hold on to the sword. Because of that, the wooden weapon goes flying and clatters to the ground. Watching all of this, the big guy, Varan, comments that Bill has zero talent. He explains the only reason he's training the kid is because he'd only make equipment if they let him fight. Varan then warns him that all this greed is going to end badly. The two then face each other on the training ground, and Vahan asks if he's still not going to listen to what he has to say. Getting our hero's attention, he asks Bill to hear him out. Our boy then asks how he can gather mana. Varhan is confused and says that's a question for a mage, but that's not what Bill was talking about. He's referring to what Varhan did when he took out the students, and remembers how he concentrated mana at the tip of his weapon before the attack. Completely shocked, Varan asks how our protagonist knows about that. With his eyes glowing blue, our hero stares at Vaughn, who asks if he can see mana. Suddenly, Varman bursts out laughing and celebrates, saying they've made an incredible discovery. He then grabs our boy and says he takes back what he said about him having zero talent. Super excited, he runs towards Bill, saying that teaching him is going to be a lot of fun. But before training, Varan says he's a bit busy right now, and with absurd strength, he lifts a giant, heavy object. Our protagonist then asks where he's going with that thing. The big guy replies that he's on his way to the Hero Academy, and explains that he needs to show results to be reinstated as a spy. The scene then cuts to Count Zahir's territory, where the large gates of a castle slowly swing open. From there, a squad of knights emerges, and one of them orders them to split into 3 groups to search the area. The soldier also commands them to use signal magic as soon as they spot a suspect. And so, the 3 groups separate and enter the forest to begin their search. A little later, some soldiers from the squad are walking through the woods. At one point, one of them stops and signals for the others to be quiet. Suspicious, the soldiers slowly approach a bush, and one of them gets ready to attack whatever might be hiding there. Then, one of the knights steps on a branch, making a noise that draws attention. Without a second thought, the soldier activates the signal magic on his weapon. With a smirk, the soldier suggests they catch whatever they found to roast it later. But another one shouts that he's found the targets and tells everyone to attack immediately. Wasting no time, the entire troop charges forward with everything they've got. They run at top speed, ready for the battle ahead. The squad keeps advancing without a moment's hesitation. However, one of the soldiers is completely confused by the situation, because when he looks ahead, there's no one left on the field. The troop then realizes they've fallen into a trap in a large pit, and before they can react, one of them senses the danger far too late. Suddenly, the ground gives way, and all the soldiers fall, screaming in despair. From the shadows, the red-haired guy appears, pleased with the plan's outcome. His name is Draco, and alongside Mog, he celebrates that one squad has been wiped out. Meanwhile, the other group of soldiers is also lost, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, one of them is dragged into the darkness, with no chance to fight back. One by one, the soldiers are caught off guard by the mysterious threat. Desperate, the troop leader tries to use signal magic to call for help, but his call for aid is cut short by a swift and precise attack. The soldier then falls into another trap, where a figure awaits him. It turns out to be a mysterious woman, watching him from the shadows. And just like that, the Shadow Intelligence Unit takes out another squad. In the middle of the forest, the last squad screams in desperation, caught in a net. They try everything, but the trap won't break, and someone tells them to do something. Outside, one of the rebels compliments our hero, saying his traps are insane, and a young woman approaches Bill, commenting that they had a good reason to keep an eye on him. Then, another guy yells for the soldiers to surrender and take off all their gear. Our boy is a little confused by his comrade's attitude, because the guy insists they shouldn't just stand there inside the net, and he asks if they're really not going to take off the equipment they're wearing. The troop leader then gets angry, and the rebel says he'll have to make an example of him. Seeing this, our protagonist desperately yells for his friend to fall back. Suddenly, a large man appears and attacks the rebel from behind. The guy is hit hard and falls to the ground, completely defeated. Shocked by the scene, our boy and the young woman stare at the enemy. The woman then shouts for the assault unit to prepare for battle. She also warns them not to let their guard down, as the net won't work on that monster. Our hero gets ready to fight, his metal arm in position. The giant enemy then says it's a pain to have to dig up moles, and with an air of superiority, he glares at the group of rebels before him. The young woman then analyzes the man's appearance and weapon, and terrified, she recognizes him as Qasim, Zahir's right-hand man. She knows that if they fight him head-on with what they have, they'll be completely annihilated. But with a determined look, the young woman says there is a way to win. She then orders the group to split up and attack from the flanks, and so the rebels rush to surround the enemy soldiers. One of them then charges a soldier with his sword, while another faces an enemy wielding a heavy weapon. The plan is to distract Qasim's line of sight with the fight, and focus his attention on the attacking troops. In this opening, the woman takes the opportunity to leap high into the air, and she throws an object towards her main target. Pulling something from her hair, she prepares for the final strike. With a glint in her eyes, the young woman yells that now's the time. Far from the fray, Kasem watches the girl's movement in the sky, but he also notices our protagonist getting ready to fire. Our boy then charges his metal arm with an intense light. The scene then cuts to our hero asking a question in the workshop. He wants to know why they don't infuse the explosive rounds with mana. Bhaskar, the captain of the artillery engineers, explains the reason. He says that depending on the mixture, it's not impossible, but there are too many variables. And with the equipment they have, it's impossible for anyone to pull it off. But Bhaskar was wrong, and our hero, with a determined look, fires the fire bomb. The attack is a fire attribute grenade that flies straight toward Kasem. The giant sees the projectile coming, but doesn't seem the least bit worried about the attack. And so, the grenade explodes with impressive force right in front of the enemy. The explosion kicks up a cloud of dust and smoke across the entire battlefield. Our boy's companions are shocked by the weapon's firepower. However, Kasem emerges from the smoke without a single scratch and attacks the group's leader. Desperate, one of the guys shouts the name of his boss, who is caught by surprise. The giant then continues his assault, charging at the other rebels. With brute force, he easily knocks down one of Bill's comrades. The blade of his weapon is stained, showing the violence of the combat. Seeing this, another rebel prepares to launch an ice bomb. He then fires a freezing blast to try and stop Kasem's advance. The attack is a direct hit, completely freezing the giant's body. Even trapped in ice, Kasem glares at the rebels with a look of pure hatred. With a roar of anger, he easily breaks free from the ice that held him, and without wasting a moment, he leaps with full force toward our protagonist. Our hero realizes that, as expected, the weapon's firepower is still too weak, so he prepares to use his next special round. The leader then yells for Edwin to protect Bill, and the guy immediately agrees. So, Edwin sprints toward Kasem to protect our hero. The giant couldn't care less and charges our boy with his weapon raised. The group leader sees the danger and yells that it's too late. But suddenly, someone uses an ability and touches their hand to the ground. Out of nowhere, a wooden barrier springs up and blocks Kasem's attack. The big guy is surprised to be stopped so suddenly. Seizing the opportunity, our protagonist fires his weapon at the ground, and he stays focused on his target without a second's hesitation. From a hole that opens up, Draco appears, making fun of our boy. The red-haired guy climbs out, all confident with his shovel on his shoulder. His companions praise his perfect timing, but warn him of the danger. And Draco is shocked to learn that's Kasem, the captain of the Knights. But instead of fear, he bursts out laughing for having caught such a big fish. However, Kasem leaps out of the hole with incredible force. The giant lands in front of Draco, who is stunned by the sight. He wonders what kind of body that is to jump from that deep. And Kasem lands with such a powerful impact that it throws everyone back. With a less than friendly look, he says they've made him angry. Then he threatens to crush their legs and grind all their bones. But our hero isn't intimidated and readies another shot with his weapon. At the last second, Draco appears and saves our hero from an attack. He then scolds him for being a marksman who shoots from so close. But our protagonist says his previous shots worked. He remembers the fire and ice bombs he used against Kasem. Draco has no idea what he's talking about right now, so he tells Bill to leave this to him and goes on the attack. Our hero's pet, Mog, also gets tossed in the process. Our boy then uses a strange ability on the ground. A weird black smoke begins to form a circle around him, and with a determined look, he prepares for what's next. Seeing this, Draco yells for everyone to get away from him as fast as possible. Kasem thinks he's trying to fight him one-on-one, and the giant calls him too young to know his own limits. Draco then says that just one of them is enough to take him down. With his shovel glowing, he prepares for a powerful strike. His eyes glow with intensity as he yells the name of his technique. The ground then opens up into a giant pit that swallows Kasem. The big guy falls with no chance to defend himself and injures his leg. Annoyed by the trick, he says he'll just climb back out. However, the hole closes, trapping him in darkness forever. With a loud boom, the earth seals completely, trapping Kasem in the pit. Shortly after, the dust settles, and the battlefield falls silent. Tired and out of breath, Draco is relieved and celebrates that his plan worked. With a satisfied smile on his face, he turns to leave, and thinks that now he needs to hurry up and get out of there too. However, he turns around and sees that our protagonist hasn't moved an inch. He then yells at Bill, asking why he didn't use the escape tunnel. Draco also warns that the magic earth will disappear soon. Our protagonist calmly replies that he's listening to what he's saying, and with a very serious look, he confirms that what Draco said is true, because the magic earth is already gone, and Draco goes into a full-blown panic. Furious, Kasem climbs out of the hole, vowing to finish them all. Our boy then tells Draco to prepare the escape route with Mog, but Draco insists they need to get out of there as fast as possible. Kasem then fully emerges from the ground, covered in a dark aura. Unfazed, our hero's eyes glow with an intense blue light. Kasem charges forward, yelling that he's going to end his life right there. With his special vision, our hero sees the enemy's entire structure. Then, he finally fires a new attack called the Thunder Bomb. Kasem is caught by surprise by the yellow light that blinds his eyes. With the shot, a powerful bolt of lightning strikes Kasem head-on, sending him flying into a ravine, and the giant is left speechless as he sees a hole in his armor.